Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast with Michael Becker and Paul Peebles. During this program, you will hear interviews with real-life successful investors who will share their stories and provide useful advice on how to acquire, finance, and operate apartment complexes. Now, here they are, Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And today in the podcast, we're going to play an interview that Michael Blank had done with Michael Becker. And so Michael Becker is going to talk a little bit about the right way to work with brokers to find off-market deals. I think there was some great nuggets of information that Becker brought up to Michael Blank. And some of the things that he brought up is advice for newbies and how to build a relationship with the brokers, how to score the elusive pocket listing, and then how to be taken seriously when you're trying to land your first deal. And the last thing I thought was pretty good was how to use networking events to build the relationships. So listen to the interview that Michael Becker did with Michael Blank, and we appreciate you listening. Thank you.
This is the Apartment Building Investing Podcast with Michael Blank, session number 64. Let's do this.
You're listening to the Apartment Building Investing Podcast, where we'll talk about all aspects of buying apartment buildings with a special focus on raising money from others. And now, your hosts, Michael Blank.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. Today I have with me Michael Becker, who is a repeat guest on the show. We interviewed him almost 2 years ago in session number 17. So it's themichaelblank.com/session 17, where we chronicle his journey from 0 to 1,000 units. In the meantime, he's actually added about another 4,000 units. And I thought, it might be nice to have Michael back on the show. Also, since I met him on the Real Estate Guys cruise a few weeks ago, real great guy, really likes to share his experiences, kind of low key. And, one of the challenge always is how do we find deals? And he just feels strongly about using brokers to find deals. And that's kind of what we're spending on in this particular episode, really drilling down on, hey, what does that look like? And how do you build relationships even if you don't have the experience? How do you build a rapport? And how do you get to, essentially, how do you eventually get to the off-market deal? That's what we're working on. So Michael's got some really great tips and tricks on how to do all that. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Hey, Michael, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, get us up to speed a little bit. It's been a little while since we had you. I think we had you on episode 17 or so. And at the time, you basically went from 0 to 1,000 units in 12 months, which was amazing. So if you haven't listened to that episode, guys, and go to themichaelblank.com/session 17. So with that, Michael, just get us up to speed, reintroduce yourself for those who haven't heard about you, and then kind of get us up to speed what happened since then.
Sure, yeah. Michael Becker, based in Dallas, Texas area, and my background is in banking. So that's kind of how I got into the business. I was a commercial lender. Worked at community banks, and most recently was at Wells Fargo for almost a decade, and that's what I did for a living. I just made loans to people that bought income real estate. In the last 4 or 5 years of my professional career, I focused exclusively on multifamily value add lending. That's kind of built a program out for Wells Fargo and did hundreds of loans for about a 3 or 4 year period there coming out of the recession. And, basically my basic story was I realized I was on the wrong side of every deal. It was much better to be a borrower than a lender in virtually every case. So I went out and did something about it. And when you interviewed me, was that maybe 2 years ago? Something like that, 2-3 years ago. Yep. I just got out of Wells Fargo, just finished, I did about 1,000 units in my first 12 months. Since then, we've done a total of 4,300 units now. We got a $33 million deal in escrow, kind of where we've, I think we currently own about 3,300. We sold about 1,000. I think I've done 21 deals. I own 14 of them. So, I sold 7. So right now we're kind of, in the immediate term, what I'm working on is we're selling a fourth property I bought. So we bought it for about 8.6 million, and we're selling it for 18 and a half. And we're going to 1031 from a 1969 flat roof building with aluminum wiring and cast iron sewers and asphalt parking lot to 2008 vintage A- deal in a better part of town. So that's what we're currently working on. That's got me excited.
Yeah, that's really awesome. There's a lot of people who wonder how someone can scale from 0 to 4,000 units in like 3 years. what do you think, if you were to boil it down, aside from, you just, I guess, being awesome, what do you, when you boil it down to, boiling it down to, what was that one factor that really helps you get to that level?
I don't know if there's just one thing, but one of the things I think I do that I was fortunate with, and it was kind of almost by accident. I have a business partner, a guy named Sean Mabrak, and Sean is got completely different skill sets and strengths than what I have, and so we really complement each other very well. What he excels at is not what I like to do, and what I excel is not what he likes to do. So I always like to describe this business as like an exponential business. For a lot of people, when you're starting out, going from 0 to 1 is so hard, but going from 1 to 2 is not a little bit easier. It's like 10 times easier getting from your first deal to your second deal. And that's kind of what I think about a good partner as well. You got lots of partners in this business, but having a good primary partner like him with different skill sets allows me to really focus on what I'm good at. And I don't waste a bunch of time on things that I'm not good at, and vice versa. So we do, instead of doing twice as much work with a partner, we probably do 4 or 5 times as much volume by having a, really good partner. And that was all just, I didn't have a conscious decision that I thought about when we decided to do business together, but it just really, really helped us out quite a bit.
Yeah, you're right. So right. I mean, partnering is so key. If you don't have the money, then go find someone who does. If you don't have the experience, then go find someone with the experience, right? So
that's right.
I think that's what you did very well. And so that's definitely a main message we talked about in episode 17. What I want to talk about here today a little bit more is one of the things that you really focus on is finding deals. And you have a special, you feel very strongly about this and you're very good at it. So, I mean, in your mind, what's the best way you guys are finding deals, even from the beginning?
Yeah. So just the fact of the business, I think is, definitely true here in Texas, and I'm sure it's pretty much everywhere in the country, is the brokers in your town control the vast majority of the deals. Whether they're on market or off market, the brokers, most of these deals just run through the brokerage community. So you gotta get in with the brokers, and then you gotta make sure you win more deals than you don't, or it's a completely unfair business is what I like to say. So you just got to make sure you're on the right side of the unfairness more times than not, and that's what I really strive to do, which is to have good relationships with brokers, work really hard with them, maintain it, stay in front of them all the time, and then make sure that now that I've grown and have some chips to trade, then I can do some things that I can kind of pay them back to help leverage to win some deals that I want to buy as well.
There's a lot of people who talk about other different ways of getting deals, I don't know, probate, sending letters, and a variety of different ways. Why is it that you feel so strongly about brokers?
So if I go to buy a property from you, Michael, you don't know who I am. And the brokers it's their job is to have relationships with owners, especially when you're starting out. They have to have relationships with owners, and then the brokers, one of the other brokers' jobs is to assess credibility, and then they deliver to the seller of the property a certain level of confidence that this buyer is vetted and can actually deliver on what they say they're going to do and close on the property. And if I go direct with them, you have this natural skepticism from the sellers, as well as I only have so much time. So talk about doing leverage. I wanted to do a lot of deals, so I don't have time to call and send letters and do that. I just have the brokers. I just use the brokers that go do all that legwork for me, and then when something becomes real, then they put it in front of me, and then we can assess if we want to pursue the deal or just punt out of the gate. But he's spending his time, he's spending his resources calling on all these ownership groups, get a whole bunch of no's, and then when he gets a maybe, then that's when we get the deal put in front of us.
Right. So, people listening to this might go, that's great, Michael. You've done 4,000 units. I've done like 0. Right. So
sure.
If you're more of a newbie, what advice do you have in working with brokers?
Yeah. So another thing that I've learned is no one comes to my office and hands me money, or no one hands me a deal in my office. You got to get out and do stuff. So it's a good example. We talked over podcasts, 2-3 years ago, but we never met. And I met you in person, about a month ago on the Real Estate Guys cruise. And that's a good event to go to. And there was a lot of investors and people to network there. Go to like local meetup groups. That's a good way to go meet other investors. And then the best way to meet the brokers is just go sign up on the list, get on their list, and then, go start touring deals with them, set up a tour on a marketed deal and just go on the property schedule a tour, and they are kind of there to force to meet you for, the 30 minutes that you're on that tour, then underwrite the deal and follow up with some feedback on why you like the deal or why this deal doesn't work for you, and give them very specific feedback. And that's a good way to have like a second, third touch point with these guys. And then you just kind of continue to do that. And that's a good way to, at least get to know who you are, and it builds at least a little bit of rapport with you as a potential buyer in the marketplace.
Right. So a few things I heard here, Michael, is one is the key thing is building relationships and ideally meeting them, in some way, and also providing feedback. Right. So if they send you a deal, providing feedback on the deal, and you do that over time. And there's this thing, people talk about these off-market or pocket listings, right? And they're so elusive. But can you talk a little bit about what an off-market deal is and why it's kind of like the holy grail of investing?
Yeah, back to the previous point to kind of add on to it. I mean, people do business with people they know and like, and if they don't, if you just send an email, it's easy to hit delete on the email and not really know you. So the face-to-face in-person interaction is just critical. I mean, I can't stress that enough. This is not a business you do, virtually. You got to get out and you got to go meet people and press flesh and all these cliches that I can keep rambling on. And then if you do that and people know and like you, then that's when you start getting opportunities that they don't share with everybody, which is like the off-market deals. And it's really unlikely you're going to find an off-market deal in your first deal. So you got to go out and buy a deal and perform. And then once you perform, and then that's when this business really starts opening up and scaling. So I wouldn't expect that you would most likely get an off-market deal on your first deal because you don't have a track record. And the people that get off-market deals have track records and proven ability that they can go execute and close on deals. But, that's it. I got deals because I closed. I said I was going to buy it on time and not retrade, and that's what I've done. And due to that, I get the word travels fast in the community. It's a pretty small community, even a place like Dallas, where we have 7.4 million people in the metro area and 700,000 apartment units or something like that. And DFW, a place like that is still controlled, maybe 12 brokers control 80% of the market, something like that.
Right. Yeah. I think it's definitely a challenge early on. I mean, if you have a track record, I mean, I've seen deals for less than, than maybe we were offering because they have, because of the relationship they had and the track record. I mean, what are some of the tips you have for the newbie person who's really trying to, do their first deal and really try to get, and they're afraid that they're not being taken seriously, which may actually be the truth. But, if you're just starting out, and you don't have a track record to lean on, what are some of the things that people can do to be taken seriously by the broker?
Yeah. So again, it's a completely unfair business. So you just kind of got to get over that, and then you got to work to get yourself in a better position, like you're referencing. So some of the things I've seen that people did, and some of the things that I did when I was starting out to kind of really help you get going, is you just got to be realistic about where you sit and what your resources are. So if you have money, that's great, but everyone has money. So money's not really, just because you have a whole lot of money doesn't mean they're going to sell you a deal. They want to take you seriously. So it's like, I like to have the we conversation more than the I conversation. So when you're starting out, you got to get good people on your team, like a good commercial mortgage broker. You got to get a good management company and a good lawyer, insurance agent. Those are kind of like four of the more key ones, with your management company probably being the largest one. So if you're going out and these brokers pretty much know all the top management companies in town and the principals of them, because it's a small community and they manage a whole lot of deals that they buy and sell all the time. So having the management company on there, and you can say, yeah, me and so from the management company, and you kind of drop their name, and that's kind of a transfer of credibility from you to the management company. If you don't have a track record and experience, go to meetups, meet people, try to find someone that has a track record and experience. Then you can talk about, we own 100 doors or we own 200 doors, even though you own 0 and your partner owns 200. You can kind of play the we game as well. And that certainly also helps with qualifying for financing, having a track record as well. So those are some of the things. This is definitely a team sport. And if you don't have something like track record or you don't have money, go find a partner. That would be the simple answer to it. And partners aren't going to come to your house. You got to go out and go to events, go to local real estate clubs, go to meetup groups. We'll go to join a mentoring program. Find other people in that program, partner together. Those are things that I see people do to kind of overcome the big mountain that is the elusive first deal.
Yeah. Now, what I heard you say is you talk about the we and not the I, and you're talking about your terms of your team, and you mentioned some of the critical people on a team, but it's not just anyone. It's ideally people that the brokers know, right? So picking your team is really important. You don't pick some guy that no one knows. It doesn't give you a lot of leverage. But if you pick a property management company or a mortgage company that is well known, then that carries a lot of weight. So that was good. And you also mentioned events. Now, you mentioned RIAs and meetups.
So as I mentioned on the previous podcast, I haven't mentioned here yet, I'm affiliated. I'm part of Old Capital, which is a commercial mortgage brokerage based in the Dallas area. We did about $500 million in apartment loans last year here, with a lot of it in Texas, but all over the nation. We're mortgage brokers. So we had an event on Wednesday night, for example, where we had a guest speaker come out, an economist, and talk about the state of the apartment market. And there we probably had 10 brokers show up to that event. And then we had, almost 400 people there and, 390 people that are investors, and then about 10 brokers that sell apartments. And that's a good place to go meet brokers, go to events like that, go to like Marcus and Millichap here locally. I'm sure they do in all the major cities have like an annual apartment event where they have like multi speakers and panels and things like that. So go to one of those events. And brokers go to that. Go to, I don't know if you have BizNow where you are, but I think BizNow is in pretty much most of the major cities. They do all these events and they'll have panels and talk about it. Just go to it. Just pay the $300, get in your car and go downtown to the hotel conference room and go to these events. That's the best way to really go out and meet people. And they all go there. You can see who's speaking at that event as well. If that broker is somebody you want to know in your town and you see speaking at an event, just go to the event and then go walk up to them and meet them and introduce yourself.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great idea. Or just ask brokers what kind of events they go to and then go to those same events.
That's right. Yeah. Anything with like economists speaking on the state of the market, those are really events that people go to. Banks put on things from time to time, as well as the big brokerage shops. Like I said, Dallas, Marcus Millichap does that. But yeah, just got to get out and start going to events. You can learn something, but more than what you learn is just kind of the networking and getting the first interaction with that broker and kind of getting face-to-face meeting with them is invaluable.
And that's a good point. I think the face-to-face thing is key. And even if it's a property that you're pursuing, just go set up an appointment, tour the property. That gives you a chance to meet them as well.
And like I said before, give feedback. So what these brokers don't like is when they send you something and then you go dark on them. Then they're like, well, what the heck? I take all this time, I go meet you, and then you don't even follow up with me. So I think if you do definitely take a tour, make sure you follow up with detailed feedback. And that's a way for you, even if it's not the right deal, you can kind of start shaping in their mind what works for you. Like, oh, I don't like it because it had a chill water system, right? So I had a big chiller for the HVAC system. So it's not really, something that fits for me. So if you find something similar location, but individual HVAC units, I'd be interested. So that's a good feedback. Then that broker knows, okay, that Michael Blanc doesn't like chiller properties, so I won't send him that deal. And that's a good level of feedback to give the broker.
Yeah, exactly. So you've built some rapport, a relationship with, you've met them maybe once or twice. How do you like to work with brokers on an ongoing basis?
So, you got to be in front of them on a regular basis without being annoying. So that's kind of the nuance of it a little bit. So we're obviously on everyone's list. I'm to this point, I get a lot of guys calling me, but that wasn't the case when we started out. So I would just get on everyone's list. And then, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, I would call them, say, talk about whatever deal they had going and or see if they had anything else coming up. And then I would just kind of start dripping on top of them. Or if I found out something interesting about the market, I would call them and let them know, hey, this happened or that happened. I obviously had a little bit of a head start to what most people do, being that I was a professional vendor in the business, being a banker. I supported it, and I knew a lot of these brokers by being a banker that made loans, and they all knew me because their loan, they wouldn't get paid until the property sells, and properties are going to sell to my loan, funded essentially. So I was a pretty key cog to that. But, everyone starts with what they have and the resources they have. My biggest challenge is getting everyone to not think of me as a banker, but as a principal in these deals. And I had to work hard to get that stigma off of me and then get the perception of Michael Becker in the marketplace as a principal that does it. So, partnering, going to these events, those are certainly ways to do it, but to staying on top of these brokers and following up every month, every 2 weeks, something like that, just checking in, seeing what they got going. That's a good way to just kind of stay top of mind. Because if you don't do that, someone else is, and that other person will get the deal. And if you just happen to call them at the right time and you ask about something, it could just trigger in their mind because they just got off a call 30 minutes earlier about this property. You might kind of just get matched up.
You're right. I mean, you got to stay in touch with these guys every couple of weeks. And I found that most brokers, for some reason, aren't very good at staying in touch with their buyers list. It's the darndest thing. But you talked about you have a head start on people because you were in the mortgage business. But for someone who isn't, one thing one can do is just look for industry specific news and just email it to them. Say, hey, I just saw, thought you'd like to see that, and maybe provide a little bit of value.
That's right. And it's just one little touch point. And the more you do stuff like that, your name crosses their mind. And it just, this life, a lot of it's just about timing and being at the right place at the right time. But if you're not putting yourself in front of them, they're not going to think of you when they had that call 30 minutes earlier about a guy who potentially wants to sell this property.
So talk about an instance where you've done this. You've, especially back in your early days, you're building relationships and rapport, and then you get a call with this off-market deal. I mean, how does that even work? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we kind of source off-market deals a few different ways. So one of them is just the broker has a deal that somebody wants to sell, and they're okay slamming an offer off market instead of going through the whole marketing process. So let me do this. The reason why people would even sell a property in the off market, that's a question that I get asked all the time. Wouldn't it always be better to just go through the marketing process? And usually the answer to that is yes. But what I think a lot of people that sell deals off market have in common, you have a couple main reasons I've seen a lot of people do it. One, we bought a deal off of a really large operator here in town. They own 40,000 units, and they very sophisticated group, and they had a loan maturity coming up in 3 months, so they needed to either refinance the deal or sell it, and they had 3 months to make a decision, so they didn't have time to go through the whole marketing process. So we were able to come in quick and strike a deal and close it before the loan matured. So that was one reason why they sold it. Another reason why I see a lot of people sell deals are kind of mom and pop operators, meaning that they self-manage these deals, and the staff on site, they actually are employees of the owners, versus a group like me where I'm set up. We'll have a third-party management company. So all the on-site staff are employees of the management company. I don't really have a personal relationship with any of them. That's another reason why I've seen people do it. Or if there's just a lot of deferred maintenance, sometimes they don't want to go through that whole process of actually selling it. So those are some key characteristics of deals that I've seen that I've sold off market. So when you're talking with brokers, I always I bring things like that up, or suggest they know of anybody that has a loan maturity coming up. Maybe we can slam a deal in pretty quick and try to do it before they refinance it. So when I'm talking with these brokers, those are some of the things that I talk about when I'm asking what they're working on. Or another way is, if this broker is, when people go sell their properties, they typically go get 2 or 3 different opinions of values from brokers, and then you select the broker you want to sell it with. So one of the questions I always ask is, hey, have you done a BOV, an opinion of broker's opinion of value on anything that you're not going to get the listing on? And so your competitor is going to sell it. Maybe we can come slam an LOI in now before this other guy signs a listing agreement, and maybe try to take it down, because they don't have anything to lose, because they're not going to get the listing anyways. That's been something we've done that's worked pretty well. Another thing we've done that's worked pretty well is we subscribe to all the data services, and those all cost money. So it's just a matter of, how much, you're willing to invest into it. So you typically don't subscribe to as many of them starting out, but we'll go to like ALM and CoStar, for example, two of the data services we subscribe to. We'll go target a part of town that we want to own apartments in. So then we'll look for deals that are 200 units and up, that are built before 1990, and we go kind of pull a list in this little geographical area. Then we look at the properties that are lagging about 10% or more in rental rates compared to their competitors, and that's our target list that we go, and we'll go to a broker and partner with them and say, hey, here's these 8 properties in this area. If we could strike a deal on price, we'd buy any of these 8 deals. That's the way that we won a few deals that way, by just giving the broker a list of 8 deals, and then they'll go call, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. Another thing we do too is we download virtually, like I said, I'm on everyone's list. We download every offering memorandum, every OM, and we archive it. And so we have, about 5 years of history now of OMs, and we just go back in time, and then you just never know. When you see something, you can have this old OM, and then you can see which broker sold it back 5 years ago, and that broker has a relationship with that owner, and that would be a broker that we would target on for that property, right? Or if that broker sold to that owner, but that owner owns 4 other properties, I know that broker has a personal relationship with that ownership group, and the likelihood of actually striking a deal goes way up if you deal with someone that's already done a transaction with them. those are just some rambling tips. I don't know if I answered your question. I think I got off on a tangent there. So if you want to re-ask a question, I can.
Yeah, you did get off a
answer.
little of a tangent, but it was a good one, because what you're doing is you're basically using the broker. So you're being more proactive with the broker. You're saying, hey, broker guy, normally you're feeding me deals when you get a listing, but why don't you go out, look for these criteria, and actually proactively reach out to these owners and see if they're interested in selling?
That's right. And then these brokers, another thing I do too is selling decisions a lot of times are revolve around the debt that's on the deal. So if you're going to go chase a deal, they just put a brand new like CMBS loan on, for example, that has 9 years of maturity and a large prepayment penalty. That's usually not a deal that's going to actually trade. But if you can start targeting deals that have maturities coming up in the next year, these owners are thinking, okay, what do I need to do? I either need to refinance it or sell it. And then usually kind of when you refinance, it's a natural time to think, okay, well, what's my property worth? Is it worth a lot more than I paid for it? I might want to go sell it. So, we really kind of target as best we can through CoStar, has some basic debt information in it. And then we look it up, and then we try to go that route and start trying to find deals that have upcoming loan expirations. And then we just go target those deals, or deals that have open prepayment penalties, that we can go target those deals if they have a large prepayment penalty and it's not a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan that has an assumable loan with a supplemental financing available, which I think I talked about in the last podcast. But basically what a supplemental loan is on the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, if you go sell the deal, they allow you to re-leverage the loan back up to 75% of the new value with a second lien coterminous note. So if you have 6 years left on your mortgage, they'll give you a 6-year loan, kind of match the same maturity date. And that's a really great tool that you can go on these Fannie Mae loans. But if you have, like I say, a CMBS loan or a bank loan, they don't allow supplemental financing in most cases. So that's not something that you can get. So just kind of, you got to be really strategic about it. So we think a lot about the debt on these deals. If it's coming due, is that a pressure point for this guy that he might sell his property? Or, there's all these different reasons why people sell, but that's certainly one of the top ones. So the brokers, any good broker knows a lot of that data, and they all have access to CoStar, ALN, Pierce Island, Trap, all these other data services that cost thousands of dollars to subscribe to. So if you don't have those resources, just, the brokers typically do. So I would certainly ask the brokers for those types of reports. And if they know if this loan's maturing or whatever, those are some of the things that I think about.
Interesting. That's pretty cool. So while you're on a roll, any other ways to find off-market deals that you've seen working?
So we do that. Let's see, what else have we done? Certainly as you grow and you scale, if you own, like we own 4 deals that are, this is almost, or 2 of them are contiguous and 2 of them are across the street from each other, and they're all like right there, same part of town. And so now over in that part of town, anything that ever comes up, I'm always the first phone call from everybody, because they know I own 4 of the deals in that part of town. So that, obviously I like that part of town. So, those are ways that anything in that pocket, we pretty much have talked to brokers about trying to buy virtually every other property in town. So if you start getting a little bit of success and you own in a certain part of town, then, the logical thing is to start working on brokers to say, hey, Michael owns this property in this part of town. Every other competitive property over there is a potential target for me to buy. So that's a pretty powerful story when they're going telling a potential seller of a property that, this owner really knows this location because he owns around the corner. So that's definitely another thought I have. And then, partnering with them, giving them a list, that's a really good way of doing it, because these brokers are on the phone all day, every day. That's their job. They're making, 30, 40 phone calls a day trying to get listings on deals. So if they're going to be on the phone anyway. So if you give them a list of a property and they can call this owner saying, hey, I have a buyer who specifically asked me to call on your property, that's a pretty good kind of like a give to the broker. So you're not just asking for something, you're giving them a list to call on. So I think that's a pretty powerful way of doing it as well.
That's awesome, man. You are a wealth of information. Appreciate you sharing your experience. I know you have a fantastic podcast. I want everyone to know about that as well. And I listen to other podcasts, and yours is certainly one of them. Tell us a little bit about the Old Capital podcast.
Yeah, so it's Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. You can go to oldcapitalpodcast.com, or it's in iTunes and Stitcher and all the other big podcast aggregators out there. And if you're an apartment nerd, it's a podcast for you, right? So if you're an apartment nerd, you must be if you're listening to Michael's podcast too. So, we interview a lot of people that we do business with at Old Capital. So a lot of our clients, a lot of them, both experience and a lot of first timers, they, got their first or second deal done. We talk kind of about what they learned and kind of stories, as well as we have economists and people from management companies and other vendors in the industry that we do business with, kind of talk about state of the market, or how do you do insurance, or how do you, whatever, work with brokers, things like that. So we had, probably had about 100 podcasts, maybe a little bit more now. We've been doing it for about 3-4 years. Just haven't been as successful as Michael has been in getting a big audience, but we're starting to grow up there. And I think it's, if you're into apartments, it's certainly a good resource and to learn. So definitely encourage anyone to go listen to this, go subscribe to ours as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that may or may not be the case, but you guys are putting out some real good content, real life example case studies. So yeah, definitely. Anyone's listening to this podcast should also be listening to yours. So definitely. So yeah, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so the best way is probably just go to my company website. It's spiadvisory.com, SPI like spyadvisory.com. And then you can see my phone number and email are on the website. So you could just, email me at mbecker@spiadvisory.com or my phone number is on our website as well if you want to reach out. I'm always happy to talk shop.
Awesome, Michael. Appreciate you coming back on the show and sharing a lot of knowledge about working with brokers to find off-market deals.
Thanks, Michael.
So here's some of the things that stuck out for me. And Michael talked about that you talk about yourself in terms of your team, right? So if you don't have any experience, well, then surround yourself with people who do, either a partner or a commercial real estate mortgage broker or a property manager. Ideally, these are people that are well known. So spend some time finding out who's well known in town and surround yourself with those people, because chances are if they're known to the broker, it adds you a lot of credibility. So that's the first thing. Number 2 is be responsive to the broker. When they send you a deal, go ahead and respond to them. Use the 10-minute offer technique to give them feedback on that deal. Try to look for ways to meet them in person, really building a relationship, and do that by touring a property, meeting with them, meeting for them for lunch, or finding out what events they go to and meeting them at those events. Those are kind of critical. And then stay in touch without being annoying. Touch base every couple of weeks, figure out some piece of value maybe that you can provide to give them an update. So that's really the keys to finding and building a relationship with brokers. And I really like what Michael said about using brokers kind of more proactively and actually saying, look, I want you to find these deals in this area, reach out to those owners and really directing them above and beyond what they're already doing. So really, really good stuff. So go out there and start building relationships with brokers. Number one way to find deals. It might take a few months, but all you need is 2 or 3 brokers feeding deals on a constant basis, and you'll have more deals than you know what to do with. It just takes a little time, so stick with it. All right. Well, if you haven't already, then make sure you download my free ebook called The Secret to Raising Money to Buy Your First Apartment Building. You can get it at themichaelblank.com/ebook. That's Michael Blank, BLANK /ebook. You can also get it via text message, which you message the word secret book, one word, secret book, to 44222, 44222. You can get it via text message as well. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much. I'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Apartment Building Investing Podcast with Michael Blank. For more free podcasts, articles, and videos, go to themichaelblank.com. There, you can also download the free ebook, The Secret to Raising Money to Buy Your First Apartment Building. Till next time.
Thanks for listening to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at oldcapitalpodcast.com to sign up for our weekly email updates. We'll see you next week for another great interview.